Hello and welcome to the Believe Crew podcast. The business is you. I'm Jamie White, founder of Believe Crew and your host. Let's jump right in. Welcome to today's episode. I have Rachel Glaza, our behind the scenes virtual assistant and operations. Really, we call her all the things. And over the last year that she's been with us, she's even taken on some coaching aspects where she turns things around on me and says, Jamie, just tell the truth in love. It's okay. So it's like an immersion experience working here in Believe Crew, right? You can't get out of dealing with your junk. So tell us a little bit about what you see for leaders when we think about leaders in companies or organizations and even people thinking about themselves as leaders. What comes to mind for you?
I've learned a lot in the last year, and a lot of that was because of Jamie. So I actually worked with Jamie before Believe Crew. Jamie was the first person to actually see my value. This concept of personalities and personality assessments, strengths, that was all that wasn't even a thing. And so that was the first time that I had heard of it. And then coaching in itself was a foreign concept. I didn't know it was a thing, but I knew that I liked having someone in my life that saw me for me and led, showed actual true leadership. And so this concept of leadership, it's such a broad term and it's perceived differently by a lot of people. But when I think leadership, especially in companies and businesses, what I think is lead by example. That is some of the best leadership that you can get. Valuing your employees, having employees working in their strengths.
Let's talk about that a little bit. You have a company. We have a company that we work with. And sometimes I'll hear you say things like, they need to work with you. Like, I'm just not even, they need to work with you. Why? What is it that you see in them? What is it that you see isn't happening or is happening or could be happening?
When people aren't working in their strength, it's very clear. I've really sat into my strength. What I do now for Believe Crew, I knew to some extent that I was doing it. I knew that I could do it, but I just always did it and it was never recognized for what it was. I was always doing it because I was good at it. So doing the organizations and auditing things and setting up processes for things, I've always done it. It's never had a title. It's never been recognized for what it was. There is such value in seeing people's strengths, what they're good at. It tells you so much.
And really, when we're working in our strengths, it's like a human need almost. You know, it gets to the point where you're like, I can't move forward without this need being met.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even give, I know my strengths. I have woo as one of my top strengths, which means I need to talk to a lot of people. And so if I'm in a position where I can't talk to a lot of people for very long, I start to power down. My batteries aren't even working anymore.
And if you put me in a position like sales where you're you need to go call all these people or these businesses, I would shut down. And so that's the best example of working in strengths. Jamie is good at talking to people and I prefer not to be on the front end, but strengths is a big thing to dig into. And there's a test that you can take and it's well worth the $50 that you pay for it. And
there's not really a free version. I've tried, but
yeah.
Gallup StrengthsFinder has done a really, really good job. And then we use Cloverleaf in Believe Crew so that we can integrate cloverleaf.me. We can see everybody's gifts and strengths. And then you get a daily email on, if you're going to be talking to Jamie, consider this.
If everyone was working in their strengths, this world would be so cohesive and it would be great. So you have people that are just not working in their strengths, and an outside eye can see that when, maybe someone's not communicating clearly or they're just not handling situations to the best of their abilities or seeing things for what they are. So different perspectives, different views. Everyone thinks differently. And so when everyone leans into who they are as a person and what they have to bring to the table, there is such value in having around the table, you have different personalities, being able to bounce things off of each other and get a complete round table of discussion. And it is so productive. And I wish everyone could do that.
I want to dig in a little bit more to the idea of what was it like before having this awareness? What did it feel like?
It feels unhealthy. When you're in a healthy environment where you feel heard and you're able to lean into your strengths and your personality, it feels light. It feels heavy when you're not in that environment. Toxic workplace culture is a thing. It is simple, like personality, but that can definitely do, like, it can move mountains, just especially in a team environment.
So when you think about how far you've come, even in a year, being in Believe Crew, what are some of the things I know you speak differently. So what
I
are some of
do.
the things you feel differently? What are some of the things you say now differently? What comes up?
Well, obviously, being around coaches, I'm always taking things in. So I listen to the language and the words that you're using, and then eventually I start to pick up on it. And so now, like Jamie said, I'm in a place where I can turn it around on, say, Jamie or someone else, anyone else in the team.
Technically, what you're saying is that, because I've always thought that bringing a coaching methodology to leadership would be super powerful in companies.
Mhm.
But what I'm hearing from you is that bringing a coaching methodology to any position so that the employees are empowered to be able to ask good questions and say the truth in love, speak the truth in
Mhm.
love, and feel like they're not going to risk, losing their job or
Yeah.
creating some kind of conflict that can't be overcome.
What Believe Crew has been doing for me is empowering. That is allowing me to basically come to it myself. But I was supported along the way. I could ask questions. I could come to a meeting crying and talk about what was going on. I would get called out and said, "Hey, you need to work on that. Like, this is something, that I wasn't seeing." And then it actually ended up, helping me. But being allowed to be me and stay quiet. Like, how I gather information is basically waiting for everyone else to speak first. And then I like to kind of summarize things or build my opinion or my thoughts, perspective based off of what has already been said.
It's so interesting, right? Because I like to speak first most of the
Yes,
time.
but I
I'm
love
like,
that. Like,
if no one else has anything to say, I'm ready.
hmm but not like putting, okay, if you think of like in a school when someone's not paying attention and the teacher says, they call on the kid that's not paying attention and that puts them on the spot. I would shut down in situations like that because I'm being put on the spot. So by not putting me on the spot, by allowing me the space to process, that is in turn empowered me in so many ways.
Wow.
And now I've come to being able to say things that I never would have said before or see things in a new light and kind of be able to sit in the coaching spot sometimes. So it helps me, especially being more hands-on with coaches as we onboard Belief Crew coaches and be able to coach, because as a learner, it's hard for me to understand how someone else can't process the information the same way. But
Right.
that also, like, that's understanding that people take in information differently. They have different personalities, they have different ways of communicating, they have different ways of taking things in.
Let's talk a little bit about intuition. How much have you changed in your perspective around being able to trust yourself and listen to what you're hearing from your own body?
In a physical sense, I'm still developing that. This is something that was new to me where someone said, "Oh, I have a pain here." Well, this is what it means. So I'm still learning how to be intuitive in that sense, but that doesn't mean I'm not, doesn't mean I can't be. It just means that I haven't developed it yet. And
Mm-hmm.
it takes a lot of being in touch with yourself to be able to do it. We all have intuition. It's just like I've been really open to it in the last few months, being like a true empath. The sympathy and words, because I think in feelings and pictures and I can see things, it doesn't always translate to sympathy. And so that's a very, like, a struggle for me, because some people need to hear words, they need to hear sympathetic words. Some people don't, but if people aren't hearing the symp- the sympathy, the
Right, right.
sympathetic words, they don't always know that, like, you still, like, you can feel the sorrow, you whatever the feeling is, it's usually like grief or sorrow
Mm-hmm.
or sadness or anger because of what they're, stress and stuff, but I can feel it.
Hmm.
So one of the things that I've been working through recently through the help of like Believe Crew coaches and stuff is being able to release that and not feel obligated to hang on to, but it allows me to be present in the moment and be with someone, be connected with someone, and then be able to release it.
It's really beautiful. Especially, I mean, emotions can be heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if we don't feel like it's safe to let them go.
That's something that I've learned from Belief Crew too, is releasing emotions. Like we hang on to emotions. We've all got situations that we go through throughout our life, throughout childhood into adulthood. There's always something to work through. There's always something to be healed. Healing was a concept that, we started talking about while we were building Believe Crew and figuring out who we're going to help. Like healing was this thing that, we put it out there, but this whole past year I've been healing. We're never going to be fully healed. There's always going to be something to work through. This is the same concept of when you're in school, they teach you history. And what do they tell you? You have to understand history to not repeat history. And so having the mindset, like some people may, of, well, you're just living in the past. If you're thinking about, if you're dwelling on the negatives, if you're, your trauma, it's not the same. Like you have to go back, probably are hanging on to emotions from whatever the situation was. And you need to release them. Like there is a process, and that's not just, oh, I'm healed because I released the emotions. It's a journey. You may not ever understand why it happened to you, but this is where faith comes into play too. And faith was a foreign concept to me. I didn't have I am like a Christian. I don't want to say there's trauma there, but there is, because back when I was young, it was this thing of, this is just what you do. This is just what we do. We go to church, you go to CCD, you go back home, and you repeat. That's literally it. And it was more so a memorizing game and knowing what to say and when. And there was no investment in us as to actually like being able to lean into what it means. I didn't understand any of it. I've really come back to being spiritual. And so when we were working on building Believe Crew, we did this wheel of life. And whenever I would take it, the spirituality was always a low number, always a low number. And so this has been something that I have worked on healing also in the last year. And this is where the empowerment also comes into play, because the people in Believe Crew are so accepting. They offer the space and put things in perspective. They'll answer questions if I have them, but I'm able to pick up on things and actually heal that relationship with God that I never had. So I don't want to say that it was really broken, because I don't feel like I ever had it. The whole concept of spirituality, the whole concept of God in religion, it was never there, because we were never invested in, like as kids, like what that program should have been. It was just this thing, this is just what we do. This is just what we do. You go to church, and that's it. Look at that. I made you cry again.
Yeah. Digging deep here. So what changed?
It's just been a journey. The entire concept had to come back to me. And it felt weird at first. And I knew that like Jamie and Kara, they would do this thing called energy work. And I don't like to limit myself. I don't like to say, oh, that's no way, Jose. I don't shut the door on anything. I like to be open. I don't like to limit myself. And so I just stayed open to it. And I would collect what was going on. So that's where that input is. I would collect what was going on. I would process it. I didn't make any hard decisions. It's just kind of, this is empowering, like allowing me to be. And then I came to it myself. Wow. But you have to be open. You have to be open to change. There are different methods of doing things, but if you want any change in your life, saying no and being closed up, like nothing is going to change ever if you are not open to it. And this is the same thing with beliefs. The first step is believing that change is possible. Help is there. You don't have to do it alone. Like there are people who will just walk beside you. And so and maybe that's more empowering, is just walking beside, and you're walking with them. There's someone that's doing the work with you. This is leadership, is the person who is guiding you is doing the work themselves. They're not just telling you, you need help, you need to do this,
Right.
you need to do that. I'm doing it too. I'm doing it with you. I'm walking with you. That's leading. And it makes a difference, especially when you're the one being led.
So the question that keeps coming to mind is there anything else that you would love for people to know about anything in Believe Crew?
It is life-changing. Belief Crew is still the thing. People are trying to understand what Belief Crew is. We're still trying to understand what Belief Crew is. But I can assure you that we're doing the work. And so on the back end, what you don't see is hours of discussion. This is also just building a business, but this is, someone's talking and we're discussing, and maybe someone's energy is off. That's huge to be able to call out, for lack of better terms, is call out, because when you don't acknowledge where something is energetically charged, like where that is coming from, like that is just like pushing things under the rug. So maybe someone came off a negative connection and they're taking on their energy. And now you're showing up in a Believe Crew meeting where we're trying to build a business and do things and do things for the greater good of Belief Crew and serving people. And now you have this negative energy. It affects everything. It affects the teamwork. It affects your view on anything. That is what Belief Crew does. Like maybe there's a belief that needs to be addressed. Like maybe something came up last night and you're still carrying it. Like everything adds up.
Well, I'm curious if there's anything that you feel has been left unsaid.
People who don't believe in energy, and this comes back to perception and what energy is and what is actually happening. Kara actually put this into perspective, and this was actually a puzzle piece on my journey with spirituality in general. Like, God is energy. And anyone who has a relationship with their God, they will tell you that they talk to God, they hear, maybe it's a feeling. That is energy. Like, this is being open. This is God guiding our Belief Crew coaches in helping you. I can't believe I'm here talking about this today, because I did not have a relationship at all with God.
How do you see Believe Crew in the future? What is something that you're excited about in the vision that we have together, and what is it that you see very specifically?
Belief Crew is filling a gap. If you do the work and you're open to doing the work with people who can see these things and guide you through them, it is always worth it. Not only is it just a lighter feeling of not being stressed, not being in a stressful work environment. Like, I remember coming home from work and just being stressed. I was irritable. Because I was tired. I had so much junk that I was carrying from not being in a healthy environment, and I was taking it home with me.
What I'm feeling from you is this, that you feel lighter today than what you used to feel.
Absolutely. I'm still working on like work and life balance altogether, but it is a lighter feeling to not be stressed, because like I am very grateful for like the work that I am doing right now and being in this environment, because I don't have to worry about my kid getting sick and missing work. And all of that adds up, but I don't dread getting up and going to work. I don't drag my feet. And if I am, there's probably something that I'm carrying that I need help with. And being able to ask for help, that had to come to me too. That took a bit. It's like this complete switch in your mind once you switch to being able to ask for help and realizing that there is help for literally anything that you're going through, it's just life changing. It's lighter, and my life has just changed so much in the last year, and I don't want it to end.
This is so beautiful. Rachel, it's been awesome to hear all of this. Much of it I've learned on the
Mhm.
podcast in this moment. So it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And the confidence that you have today when you're in your work and in your zone shows so much. And even having you call me out is beautiful. I love it. Thank you.